everyone. I'm Patricia Muir. I'm your host today. Over the last 3 decades, I have remastered and refined my life, business, and work several times. Today, I embrace a blend of working styles, all aimed at empowering women executives and business owners to thrive in their personal and professional lives. Welcome to Executive Encore, where we merge personal stories and practical wisdom to help you prepare for a fulfilling journey and an adventure as you remaster your life and work. In today's episode, we will delve into the journey of evolving from duty to desire and getting your groove back. So I'd like to introduce my special guest, Linda Robert, who empowers women to get their groove back, live their best lives, and reclaim balance and joy. Travel and the power of the me first mindset are threads throughout her work with clients who are evolving from duty to desire. With 20 years in the mental health and employment consulting profession, Linda's expertise spans teaching courses such as English as a foreign language, that must come in very handy in traveling, and
It does.
delivering wellness training. Linda holds master's degrees complemented by certifications in professional coaching, including emotional intelligence. And Linda is a mindfulness practitioner. Linda is currently editing her book on self love and offers direction for those facing transition at the crossroads in life and work, including empty nest transitions and other life changes. If you are watching on YouTube today, let us know in the comments which crossroads you are approaching, what you think that transition will look like, and both Linda and I will respond to your comment to add value to your experience wherever you are in your transition. Hello, Linda. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm doing well. Thank you.
That's good. So, Linda, you and I had a conversation and we spoke about one particular topic of self care and how it's related to reclaiming balance and joy and well being. Could you say a little more about your connecting, how you connect self care with reclaiming balance and joy?
Sure. So years ago, my mom was living with me. And just a little bit about how that happened. I was married at the time, and my husband thought that she should move in with us, especially when she wasn't able to take care of herself. And so, a year and a half after she moved in with us, uh, I split up with my husband. And I did at that time place my mother. But she at the time was running away. She was in a retirement home, not the best place for her. And she kept leaving that nursing home, that retirement home. So I made a decision to take her back. I made a decision to have her live with us
Mm,
for many years, actually. My kids were teenagers at the time. And at that time, I was also working in psychiatry, except the combination of taking care of my mom who had dementia, who was getting worse, and my job and my kids caused me to, let's just put it this way, be completely out of balance,
mm,
completely out of whack.
mm,
And I remember that night I was crying and crying and crying. And I told myself that I couldn't go back to work because, unbeknownst to me at the time, I was going through a burnout.
mm,
I was going through a burnout, and I made a decision to not go back to work, but I also at the same time needed to think about how I was going to put a little bit more balance in my life. And at that time, I decided to go away for a couple of weeks. My mom was living with me. My dad actually came over to take care of my mom when I wasn't there and my kids. I went away for a couple of weeks just to kind of think about things and refocus on what was really important. I knew that my mom was important to me, but I knew that I didn't owe her anything. So there's a lot of reflection at the time. When I came back from those couple of weeks, I made a decision. I had to place her. And it was not an easy decision, but it was the best decision that I could make for myself and for my kids, to be honest with you. It was really helpful for my kids as well. And that's when I started to learn. I guess I have to say learn, although, I had all the education in the world by then, even I didn't know how to put the attention on me again. I didn't know how to take care of myself again. And one of the counselors even said, "You got to learn to play." And I thought, what? What do you mean
Yeah,
play?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I had to really learn to let go of those hats, the professional hat and
Mhm,
the daughter hat. I really had to do that and to
good.
put some space and to start thinking of me. That was challenging at the beginning. It took some time for me to put the attention back on what do I really want to do?
Yeah.
What does taking care of me really, really mean? So that was kind of the beginning of that
Hmm.
phase.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So you worked on yourself to understand that me first was important so that you could actually take care of yourself and take care of the challenges that came with having your mom in care or whether she was visiting with you, whatever.
Yeah.
When you are working with other with your clients, I'm sure you bring up the me first concept. What's their reaction as they are approaching crossroads of transition? And that's a big transition, like
It's
the me first, right? Can you tell
it's
me a little
very
bit
diff
more?
yeah. It's very, very difficult for most women. I'm going to say women because I do work primarily with women. It's very difficult to change that focus because most think do that, right? How can they actually put themselves first? So
Mm-hmm.
it's challenging at first. And then, of course, through coaching and conversations, they do come to understand that if they don't take care of themselves first, how could they possibly take care of a loved one?
Yeah.
And so there is a shift, but it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a
No.
bit of time. It takes little steps first to understand the importance of doing some little things first for us, and maybe as we get more comfortable, as they get more comfortable, to make bigger decisions in some cases too. So it takes a while.
What would one of those little things look like?
Well, saying no.
Oh, good.
I mean,
No is a complete sentence.
that
Yeah.
that might sound like a big thing, but in some cases it can be a small thing. And it could be as simple as, and this is, just an example, but if a friend of theirs asks them if they can go to the movie, and they normally say yes all the time because they're so used to saying yes, 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 sure, I'll do that. Yeah, yeah. But it's to actually take a moment to think, hmm, I'm tired. I'm tired because they've recognized that they're tired now. And today might not be the best time to go to a movie. So no thanks. How about next week? Or so it would be that simple. And to me, that's simple, although that can be challenging in some cases as well. Right.
Mhm.
So you start little, but I think a no is a good place to start.
Well,
Yeah.
what's interesting about that one is that it actually contradicts our desire to have some joy, right? Like going to the movies with a friend is joyful, right? However, when we look at me first, I know I'm not in a position to really take advantage of the joyful moment because I'm so tired. So it's not as simple as just saying no. Like you said, you have to process it, or you could have some automatic responses for when someone is asking you to do something, even if it's joyful, like go in very quickly and saying, okay, is this the best thing for me right now? So I
That's right.
think that's a really good point that you bring up. It's
Yeah.
it's not a
And and
simple no.
and when when I've been practicing mindfulness for a while now, and while we practice mindfulness, we realize that we have impulses sometimes,
Mm,
and we are quick to respond. And we notice that in our body. Oftentimes, when we close our eyes, we'll notice that we hear a noise and we want to open our eyes and see what's going on. That's an impulse, right? That's a reaction to something. So over time, you learn to respond as opposed to react and be less impulsive and just hang on a little longer. And so we recognize within our bodies that we're tired. And we were talking about time. We notice these things. It takes a bit of time because
Mhm.
I think that we're talking about self-care right now, but there's a bit of awareness that needs to happen at some point. If we
Mhm.
go, we don't take the time to stop and actually notice, oh, the pain or the headaches or
Mhm.
the feelings in the back that we might feel because we've been going like for a
That's
long
right.
period of time.
Yeah. We
And
gloss
then finally
over.
we stop and we start going, I've got a pain here. Well, that pain was probably there for a while, but now you're noticing that
Yeah.
pain
Yeah.
because of paying attention.
That's interesting. So let's talk a little bit about the transitions at the crossroads in our life and work and the empty nest and other changes. Tell us a little more about what you have seen women go through in these transitions.
Right. So when it comes to the empty nest, I've seen a couple of things. Either they hold on and they try to do things the same way as it was before the kids left, or the complete opposite. And they start changing their rooms without, without even the last child being moved out. So there are some extremes. But what happens inside is it's either I've been waiting for this forever, or no, I have to hold on to every memory. I have to hold on.
Mm,
And I think that's part of the resisting of the inevitable change that's going to happen. There's different ways that people respond to change. And ideally, I would be meeting with somebody who is anticipating that change, who might not be smack in the middle of the change, because as a person approaches the change, there's definitely different ways of managing that change and understanding what's happening. Because a lot of times, there's stuff going on up here, and maybe we're reacting to some of our thoughts or some of our beliefs as our fears kick in, right? Because oftentimes when children start leaving, there's fears that kick in. We
mm-hmm,
might not we might not know that they're fears, but
mm-hmm,
through conversations, coaching, we realize, oh, I think that's what's going on. I'm afraid of being alone, or I'm
mm,
afraid that my last kid is going to leave me, and I don't know if he's going to be okay. All of these
mm,
different types of
mm.
fears
Yeah,
come up. So the
yeah,
coaching is really helpful, ideally before the women. I say women because I work mostly with women before
yeah,
they're in that phase,
yeah,
because it's helpful to understand what might happen
yeah.
as they get closer to the day.
Mm-hmm. But when I first started this channel, like Executive Encore, I did focus on speaking to women and thought leaders who were 60, 70, and even over 70, right? And I had a lot of younger women coming to me that were coming through crossroads of other transitions. And they would say to me, well, I'm not 60 yet, so I cannot be a guest on your program. I said, no, you can bring a lot of value to this program. And I'll tell you what, I'll open up the scope from 40, 50, and 60. Because, yes, I can remember I went through a transition at crossroads at 40, at 50, at 60. And it wasn't like I was dreading anything. It's just that sometimes age brings those transitions, but sometimes that age is connected to your lifestyle at that time, like
Absolutely.
children leaving when you're in your 40s or in your 50s. So that lifestyle changes, and we do anchor it by age, but actually it's the phase of life is changing. So
Right.
that's how this channel developed into 40,
Oh,
60 and beyond,
right.
40, 50, 60 and beyond.
Right.
Because and I also when we talk about transition from say a corporate job or working into what some of them are still referring to as retirement, I say, if you haven't thought about it by the time you're 60, you're you're leaving it too long. You do have to start preparing for transitions at least
Absolutely.
5 years or a decade before that actual transition's coming up, because there is a
That's
lot to
right.
process. So
A
yes,
lot to
I
process. And
yeah,
I was going to add, if you don't mind, because what
go ahead.
happens sometimes, and of course, this doesn't always happen, and we're talking about the empty nest here. What happens sometimes, and I've seen it, is that when the kids leave, the couple is left alone. It's either going to be a good thing or a bad thing, to be honest with you, right? And if it's a bad thing, then I've seen separations happen, and then there's another transition as a result of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not just the kids are leaving, you know. That's one part of the transition, but there's a change in the relationship as well that happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if they haven't planned that or thought about that ahead of time,
Mm-hmm.
then it's like, oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm. I have
You know,
worked with
so
I have worked with some couples where it's very obvious by the body language who's taking control of that transition. And I had one particular situation where the husband said, "Oh, yes, this is what we're doing. I'm planning for it. I'm planning for it right now. We are going to move to this area." And the shock on his wife's face was, you couldn't miss it. And she looked at him and she says, "When were you going to tell me?"
great.
Because that was not her idea of what her transition would look like. So yeah,
Yes.
there's needs to be talked about on a regular basis as we go through these different phases, so that you know it's
Yeah.
communicated and everyone
Yeah.
is doing what's best for either the family unit or the couple, but especially for the person who's going through the transition. Is that me first again,
Absolutely.
right?
And,
Yeah.
you mentioned retirement as being another transition here. And I'll keep this part brief, but the retirement, if a person is single, okay, there's a different type of transition, but if they're in a couple, then it's not just my retirement or his retirement. There's our retirement that needs to be discussed at some point too,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm like, right.
I've heard some of them say, "Oh my goodness, the pressure that we have to do all this stuff together now." And I say, "No, that's not a rule. You can still have your
But it's
interests."
rethinking, right?
Yeah, that's
Because
the
back
thinking.
in the day, back years ago, things might have been like that,
That's
but not
right.
anymore.
It's changed. Yeah, there's a lot behind that. So one of the things in transition, or to either help the transition or help you to identify what you want to do through a transition, is your love of traveling. Tell me more about how travel fits into these concepts of self-care and the
Right,
transitions when there's a transition at a crossroad in our life and work.
right. So, traveling can happen at any time in our life for sure.
Hmm.
But there are certain times, I think, that we can add traveling to our life when we're going through a change.
Hmm.
And I'll give you an example, and I'll talk about my trip in just a second. But if someone has been taking care of their parent for a while, and then the parent passes, or maybe the parent is placed in a nursing home, and then the responsibilities change, I think traveling is a perfect opportunity to learn how to take care of yourself and to transition to that more independent state of doing what you want to do, of seeing what you want to see, of eating what you want to eat, of going wherever you want to go. I think that's a great learning opportunity when you're adding traveling as part of that transition period.
Hmm.
When
Hmm.
I traveled the Del Norte last fall, actually almost a year ago, I didn't do it for that reason. I went there. I had already learned to take care of myself, but I went there by myself because I had a lot of friends along the way that said, "I'll go with you. I'll go with you." But they never could come with me. They
Mm.
never could come with me, or they didn't want to, or maybe next year. And I thought, you know what? yeah, I want to do this. And
Mm-hmm.
so, um, there's a story behind how that happened, but I did it. And I did it just because I wanted to experience it. At the time, it wasn't a part of my self care. It wasn't. It was because I wanted to travel it. I wanted to walk it. I wanted to experience it. I wanted to know what this was all about because I had heard a lot of great stories about the Camino,
Mm-hmm.
and I just wanted to experience it. But at the end of the day, I mean, there were a lot of lessons that came about, but at the end of the day, I had to take care of myself. I'll give you a very quick example. I had to take care of my toes. I
Mm-hmm.
know it sounds very simple, but I
Yeah.
I I ended up with getting blisters. And in the morning, I had to put band-aids around my toes every morning to make sure that I was ready to walk the next 25 or whatever kilometers. So even then, I had to take care of myself. A lot of things were taken care of. My suitcase was brought to the next hotel. My breakfast, everything was ready for me. But that simple thing of getting my feet ready and my toes ready, an act of self-care.
That
And
is such a great example of how important self-care is. It's not the pampering, it's not the manicures, pedicures and that sort of thing. It's actually looking after certain parts of your body that you're going to need to be healthy, to be able to do the things that you want to do.
of course, and in this case, when I'm talking about the Del Norte, that's what I had to do. Of course, at the end of the walk, here's another piece of self care. At the end of that walk, I decided to go on a cruise. So I did a cruise before the walk, completely different cruise than after the walk.
Really?
It was a fun cruise, the first one, fun cruise, met a lot of people. And then I did my 30 odd days of walking, and then I did another cruise. I wasn't expecting that second cruise to be I was in a completely different space. I was so used to walking on my own because I walked the Del Norte on my own. I was so used to it being quiet that I longed for that quietness after that walk. So I went on that cruise, a great itinerary, but the minute there were lots of people around, I noticed it,
Hmm.
and I had to take care of myself because it didn't feel right for me to be around all these people. No, I had to find some quiet spaces for me. I did more journaling. I was finishing my book. I thought, because I had brought my laptop with me, and I didn't use it when I was walking, no, but I took time to I took time to work a little bit on that book and just to go to the library. So I did take care of myself because I felt I had to.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just a little bit of a different self-care there
yeah. Yeah,
because of the
that
experience.
That is such a great segue into a part of this program that's called Every Moment Matters. Like you've just given us a great segue. Could you please share a pivotal moment, and it may have been during your travel, when you realized it was time for you to recalibrate, redefine your life and your work, and get back into your groove? When did you discover what you truly wanted, needed, or what you wanted to do to ensure that every moment counts and that you get back into the groove?
Well, there were definitely a lot of different moments. One moment that I didn't share with you the last time, it was I was working full time. I was an employment consultant, and I worked there for a total of 9 years. And I had been wanting to leave that job for a few years. My son, my son has a mental health issue, and at that time, this was in 2018. He got really sick,
Hmm.
and I had to drive from Ottawa to North Bay to see him, to see how he was. On my way there is when I decided that's it, I'm quitting my job. I want to be more available to my kids.
Okay.
I can't work full time anymore. So when I came back from seeing him, um, I gave my notice. I gave a 2 months notice.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that time, I thought, because I had been scared to do it for years,
Mm-hmm.
I my son's illness is what caused me to quit my job.
Mm-hmm.
So I quit my job, and after 2 months, I thought I'd be able to sell my house, and I didn't. I didn't sell my house. So there were a lot of little moments that caused me to shift. I started teaching English more online at the time, 2018. My house didn't get sold, right? I finally sold my house in 21, November 21.
Mm.
But
Wow.
during that period, there were times when I started thinking, I'm glad that I did what I did because it forced me to change my lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And it forced me to really take a look at what's really, really important. My family's important. My children are important, even though they're adults, they're still important to me.
Of course.
And and I'm important. I want to be able to have the flexibility. I don't want to have to ask for time off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those were moments for me that
Mm-hmm.
caused me. And then when I sold my house, there was another moment. I sold my house to be closer to my kids, and that meant not having a permanent home. I started traveling, because I did go to Del Norte last year. I started traveling, and I realized that I needed to have a stable home base. Having a house and living in Mexico for a few months in the wintertime and did that a few years wasn't working for me and
Oh.
isn't at this point, even not working anymore.
Mm.
So there's another like little shift, another moment where it's like my moments are very important now, becoming increasingly important as I get older, where
Mm-hmm.
every decision I make, I think about it even more so now because I'm thinking about the impact that my decision can have on my life and, you know, not so much my kids' life, but I'm keeping that in mind as well, keeping my kids in mind as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of little things happened in the last few years, those kind of moments that made me think I'm very important,
Mm.
and the decisions that I make are important as well and have an
Yeah.
impact on my life.
Very, very important. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. And I do not want to skip over the fact that you said uh, in certain transitions, they're fine for a while, but then something tells you that this is no longer best for me. And then you go through another transition. So it's not like something that you planned for, like, say, a retirement, and you're going to do all these different things in retirement. And that's the plan set because you could get into that transition, love it, and then find that it doesn't work for you anymore. So there's your
Yeah,
permission. Again, like you said, I am important, to realize that I am important, and for
that's
me to
right.
stay healthy and to find the joy in my life, I need to
That's
make
right.
some tweaks. So, yeah.
That's right. Yeah,
How can our audience connect with you? And I know you do have a call to action. Could you share what that call to action is?
certainly. So I do have a Reclaim Your Balance, a self-care and well-being guide for professional women. And they can access that on my website at lindagrobert.com.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in there, they'll find that I developed this guide. I'm looking at my second screen here. I developed this guide to showcase a well being and self care model that I developed. It's very straightforward. I'll just mention it just briefly. It starts with choice. Choice to me is the biggest thing. It's at the center. And then there's breathing and calming activities and movement and savoring. I think all of those components are important, very important, and I practice that in order to reclaim our balance and our joy in our life.
Mm-hmm.
So there's tips in there as well using that self care model,
Okay.
and of course they can also get a hold of me through LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
Linda G. Robert at LinkedIn.
And I will share all those links in the show notes. So if you're watching or you're listening and you didn't catch everything, don't worry, you can go into the show notes and you can find them. So, Linda, is there anything else that you want to share with us today before we wrap up?
The only thing I think I'd like to add is that it's okay to look at ourselves first. It's okay to say to take care of ourselves. It's
Mm-hmm.
all right. It's acceptable now, right? Maybe in the past it would have been oh my God, I'm being selfish. But we don't think that way anymore. There's been a mindset shift in terms of that. It's an important piece of working. We have to take care of ourselves when we work, because if we don't, we can't contribute to our environment.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
it's okay. I think that's the biggest piece. It's all right. Let's take care of ourselves first so that we can, you know, get take care of others and of course get back in our groove again.
Good. Get back in your groove again. That's great. Thank you, Linda. And thank you to my incredible audience for watching and listening, and to Linda's amazing followers. Linda has an amazing YouTube channel. I'll put that in the show notes as well. Amazing amount of followers you have. So I want guests and anyone who's listening or watching to remember your travel adventure can be the quest to reclaim your balance and joy. I think that's what Linda has expressed today. At any age, any phase, it can also be a voyage towards your self trust, resilience, and an unshakable sense of self empowerment. I think Linda has also given us stories that show that. Along with the attention to self care and well being, travel can be motivation for getting back in the groove. So, this is where your Executive Encore begins. Subscribe to Executive Encore on YouTube, on Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. Be inspired by these conversations that I have with remarkable women like Linda and other thought leaders. Doesn't matter what age, gender, or what perspective you have on self care, well being, fulfillment. I invite you to be a guest on my show if you want to share your perspective. Let's connect and inspire one another. So, in the show notes, you'll see where you can visit my website at patriciamuir.com, read my Encore Weekly blog. By the way, September 1st, coming up after this video, the newsletter will be all about Linda, and I'll be blogging about my experience in chatting with Linda and also the video. So please, if you're listening to this before September 1st, be sure to sign up for the newsletter. It focuses on other topics that resonate with women who are moving towards crossroads at 40, 50, and 60 and beyond. And looking forward to fulfillment at those times. Again, read the show notes. I do have a special for anyone who does subscribe to the newsletter. If you're already subscribed and you want access to the special, it's my online self-paced course about building blocks to emotional wellness and resilience. And it's about emotional intelligence strategies for maintaining your emotional well-being and resilience. It complements the work that Linda does. So, take a look at that course. And then if you want to get involved with Linda, Linda would be able to add to more value to it. This program is usually valued at 147 US. The discount code is $100 off. It also gives you an opportunity to have $100 off the EQ 2.0 assessment with a debrief and a coaching session. So don't wait too long to subscribe. Sign up for this offer, which is valid until September 30th, 2024. And if you'd like to be a guest on Executive Encore, please contact me at patriciamuir.com. So take care of yourself, do what's best for you, and don't jeopardize what you've built for yourself. Have a wonderful day.